Hello, and welcome back to the Pet Business Wellbeing Podcast with me, Nathan Dunleavy. This is the podcast where we talk about the realities of running a pet business, the highs, the challenges, and most importantly, how to look after your well-being whilst you do it. Because running a business should support your life, not consume it. Amanda VanTassel, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I am doing great today. Sunny day. It's beautiful.
Oh, great. Well, do you know what? I also just didn't realize off air, I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your surname. So I hope I did that okay.
Great. Yeah. A lot of people have a little bit of guesswork going on.
I was just thinking, oh my God, I'm going to say it wrong, but then I'll just have to, come back from that. But Amanda, I'm
That's
so pleased.
editing sport.
Yeah, I'm so pleased. You're my first international guest. You're all the way in Canada.
I am. And as far away as we are, we're not that far because I'm on the East Coast. So we're just right across the pond.
Okay, great. Well, obviously, I'm in the UK, down in Southampton, about an hour and 10 minutes from London for those people that know London. But yeah, I'm really excited because you're my first international guest. So brilliant. Right, Amanda, for those that are listening or watching, if they don't know you, please could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So, as you said, I'm Amanda and I run a company called No Hassle Dog Training. I've been doing that for about 6 years now. And in the last year or so, I've started mentoring other pet business owners and very soon to own my own private dog park.
Wow, that is so
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, I am beyond excited about that. It's been in the back of my brain for a while and
That's
now it's
it.
coming to life. So, yeah, really,
Oh,
really exciting times.
oh,
And
brilliant.
in addition to that, running all of these businesses and doing all the background for it, I live with ADHD and chronic back and nerve pain. So well being is really, really important to me.
No, I love it. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. It's a nice segue. So I love that you do the mentoring because that's how we met. We're both part of the same business coaching program with Dr. Holly Tet. And I loved how collaborative you were. You reached out to me and said, oh, I'd love to follow your Instagram page. I also mentor pet pros. And I'm a really big fan of collaboration over community and over competition. And that's what I do. So it was lovely just for you to reach out and say that to me.
I'm so glad it worked out so well. It's always a chance you take when you proactively reach out to somebody like that, but it's just kind of who I am. And I can take a no. I've got broad shoulders. So, but it's worked out really well in my favor over the last number of years. And I think it's really important, especially as somebody running a business all by yourself, to find those connections, regardless of where in the world they are. So, so important.
No, I love that. And I love that it's quite like I don't know, I can't quite like I had my first international mentee came on board like last year and they were in America and Washington and like and now because of like groups like Holly's, I'm getting to meet other amazing pet pros, other mentors, coaches like yourself that are all over the world.
Yeah, it's really, and Holly's group is so phenomenal for that. I've met so many great people from that group.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Right. Let's move on then to my first question in this podcast. So, Amanda, something I really admire about you is how openly and honestly you share your lived experience. You mentioned that you're neurodivergent, ADHD, living with a physical disability, your chronic pain, but you're still running successful pet businesses. You wear lots of hats like me. So, for our listeners or viewers who may be watching, who may be navigating similar realities, could you just start by sharing what your bad days in inverted commas actually look like and what helps you keep going when things feel that bit heavier?
Yeah, that's a great question because really, bad days look different for everybody, right? And even with similar conditions. For me, I think a lot of the days that I find really difficult to function are the ones that I wake up super tired. I'm also discovering I have sleep apnea now that I'm getting older. So that's part of my problem. But the brain fog is just horrendous, forgetting words, forgetting where my things are, why I'm even standing in the room that I'm in. Like it's awful some days.
Right.
And, waking up and just immediately feeling that tightness in my back and my hips and, trying to put socks on, going, how am I going to get the rest of this day done? Let alone, just try to get up and have a cup of coffee, right? And then in addition to all of those physical symptoms you have, there's that feeling of sensitivity, both the physical touch. So if my partner comes to say good morning and, hand on shoulder, that will often make me startle or jump in pain. And then you deal with the emotional components of that, feeling just weepy some days because you can't handle everything that's going on and your to-do list on top of that.
Yeah.
So really that's what it looks like. And then when things get like that, what I do to actually keep going is I started implementing a little bit of a burnout routine.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, something to kind of make me realize that I need to take it a little bit slower
Mm.
and find ways of managing things a little bit better. I hyperfixate, hyper focus, especially on things that I'm passionate about. So it can be really easy to go a little bit overboard some days, but I have to recognize that I'm going to pay for those days,
Yeah.
sometimes for many days in a row afterwards. If I go too hard, too heavy, too fast on any given day, I'm going to pay for that.
Bless you.
So yeah, it's really tough, but I think honestly, I try to maintain some mindset work as hard as that can be some days.
Mm.
And I do a kind of like, what do I have to get done today versus what's going to wait? And on those brain fog days, my big projects are not happening.
Yeah.
I'm doing tiny admin tasks, right? And feeling like I get that dopamine hit by checking that one little thing off my list. And maybe that dopamine helps me do just one more thing on that list.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And you mentioned it was a burnout routine. So this is like some sort of like support package or tools that you've put together to help you. So you recognize that, don't you? And then you've got these tools to help you deal with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In my previous career, I was doing much different things. I was in the energy industry working on conservation and sustainability. Again, something really lights me up and I'm very passionate about it,
Yeah.
but I burned out 3 times in 8 years
In 1 year.
and in eight.
Oh, eight
So
years. Oh,
it,
wow.
it
Okay.
took a
Yeah.
little while to build up, but after 8 years in that industry, I knew
It
that I just
does.
couldn't keep doing that same thing over again.
Mm.
And when I started to recognize some of those same signs and symptoms coming in my dog training business and pet mentorship, I recognized that I was heading down that same path all over again,
Mm.
hyperfixating, overworking myself and into oblivion essentially. And that's just not sustainable. So I had to come up with, and think of the things that helped me over time
Mm.
and really start implementing them on a regular basis.
Mm.
Automation's another big one, right?
Yeah.
Like anything you can automate, my goodness, take that off your plate. So the bad days aren't so bad anymore and you're still getting stuff done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely good to automate things, outsource, and maybe like a VA that can help with some of like, some tricky jobs or just some of the tasks that take up time, like some admins. We've had had a couple of VAs on actually, and talking about sort of outsourcing, it can really help you in your business.
Absolutely. I only have my virtual assistant for 2 hours a week.
That's all you
But
need.
she's a godsend, right?
Yeah.
Like it takes things off my plate. My weekly email that I really wanted to send out, just never found the time
Same.
for.
That's me at the moment.
I set up a little template. I created a little bit of a content plan and I said, here you go. Right.
Off you
And
go.
now it's getting done on a regular basis. So
Yeah.
it doesn't take much, an hour or two a week of help really does add up over the long run for sure.
Yeah, and I know Holly's a big fan of like just saying,
Just
if you can, start with like an hour a week just to
yeah,
get something off your plate. And then, if you can then manage it, you could then increase that over time. But just giving
yeah,
you that time back to then focus on different priorities in your business or putting your own well-being first. That hour appointment could be for you to go for a walk or a swim or, or doing some meditation.
yeah, take a walk with my dog, right? Or, hack away at one of those big push my business forward projects that we all have.
Amanda, I'd love to, because there's some parallels with me and you, but I'd love to. So, if you don't mind me asking, like the ADHD diagnosis, was that a later life thing that we're seeing with a lot of adults now?
Yeah, it was. I was 38 and I'm 42 now.
Oh, we're
So
similar
it's
ages. I'm 42 in August. I didn't know we were similar ages.
that's fantastic. Yeah, I turned 43 next month on St.
Oh,
Patty's Day.
oh, right.
Um, yeah. And it was, as I was heading into the end of my previous career, I started to see some things like my coping mechanisms were coping.
Mm,
My toolbox felt empty, even though I had had years and years of therapy under my belt.
mm.
So I started to go back to therapy, and it was actually a really good listener. And I must have been on a rant one day, and she stopped me mid sentence and said, "Have you ever looked into ADHD?" And I said, "Well, not myself, but literally 90% of my family members are all diagnosed with ADHD.
Right.
And there's a couple members with autism as well. So we all know how closely connected those two disorders are. And um, it really started to make a little bit more sense for me, answer some of those questions that I had. And I went for the full diagnosis, and it was eye opening. I have to ask you, actually, I'm going to flip the script. Did you have to go through like a grief process when you were diagnosed late with ADHD?
I haven't been diagnosed yet.
Oh, well, let me tell you about the grief process you're going to go through.
This is what I was going to speak to you about because I'm going through, I've not broadcasted this to anyone other than my husband and my best friend who happens to be my bookkeeper. And actually, no, I have spoken to Holly about it briefly, but I was going to ask you about it in a minute, but you say what you're about to say.
We are just two peas in a pod, I swear. Yeah, it was really intense. The first day I cried and Ed laughed. And it was really weird. Even my partner was like, "What are you going through right now?" And I said, "It just feels like such a weight has been taken off my shoulders." But then I also recognize that I have had the deck stacked against me since I was a child. And I was, I'm going to get emotional here even.
Oh, bless
It
you.
helped you really stop and think about all of the opportunities that I missed out on or struggled with or couldn't get by and couldn't access because of what I was experiencing growing up.
Mm.
Um, and it took really going through that whole grieving process. There was anger. There was, I can't understand how all of these doctors, like I said, I've been in therapy for years. How was I missed so many
Mm.
times? How was it that my brother, who was off the wall and bouncing like the typical ADHD boys were, was getting all this help and support, and I was the good quiet kid, right?
Well,
And
I can see
but
some
still,
parallels here. Yeah.
yeah, but still struggling so much in school and just going, well, this must be how everybody deals with it. And then day one of medication,
Oh, you're on
the
medication, because some people choose not to, don't they?
I had to try because all of the things that I learned to cope with over the years weren't working anymore. So I was like, before I can relearn new coping mechanisms, I need to find a way to support myself.
Mhm.
So I did choose the medication route, and it is an instant effect.
Isn't
Within
it?
about 40 minutes of taking that medication, my brain quieted. That that constant inner monologue, sometimes 3 and 4 and 5 conversations going on at once. And where's my keys? And I got to do the dishes and my to-do list and all of the things. And then rehearsing conversations because you're,
Yeah.
feeling weird about having a big conversation that day.
Mm.
All of that quieted in my brain.
Wow.
And I went, this is what it's like. Like, this is really what it's like to be able to stop and think about one thing at a time and then
Mm.
do that thing. Right. And without all of that background noise all the time, it
Mm.
was, I don't think I'd be where I am in my business today if I hadn't have gone for that diagnosis and if I hadn't gone for the medication route. I
Right.
think there might be some day maybe when I can go off the meds, but right now it is the most helpful thing I've ever done for myself.
Mm.
All the antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication in the world that I had always been tried on, because of course, all the doctors want to tell you that's what it is, right? Is
Yeah. Yeah.
depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
So I run the gamut in medications, like you name it, and I've probably tried it
I
at
think
some
I
point.
I think I have as well. We'll come on to it in a minute. Oh my God. Like this
It's
is
amazing, right? And
yeah.
then that was another anger moment too, was how could I have been on so many different medications over so many years and still have doctors not realize that maybe there's a misdiagnosis here,
Mm.
right? Maybe it's not anxiety, because what did work would work for a very short-term basis. And then I'd be back to where it was starting again, right? And
Mm.
so, yeah, it was to feel like I finally had a path forward, and the support of a therapist who listened and understood was amazing for me.
Mm.
It really, really helped me um, find a way to sustain this business.
Oh, that's amazing. So
Yeah.
I've got my mind's buzzing. So I'm going to come on to me in a minute, but I just want to say, if you don't mind me saying, did you worry about like a stigma because all of a sudden, how all of a sudden are adults being diagnosed with ADHD or autism, but then there's this thing that, well, everyone's got it now. Like how do you deal with that sort of thing?
So lucky for me, I had a really, really supportive workplace in the past. So I got very used to being open and honest
Mm.
with everybody. We've got, World Mental Health Day, and in Canada, we have Let's Talk Day.
Mm.
And I was always very open and honest about the struggles that I dealt with over the years.
Mm.
And that helped me continue to be open and honest about my ADHD. And then I really thought about it and started diving into that whole aspect of, late diagnosed ADHD, especially in women. That is extremely common. You should see the number of Facebook groups that are bigger about that.
Oh.
And it was really, I think that the point that I make to anybody that says that to my face is that it seems that way, doesn't it? Absolutely. But I think what's happening is over time, especially when it comes to women, medical research is finally being done on women and not just white men. And that's how it had been for many, many, many years. So
Mm.
they are finally understanding the differences and how symptoms show up differently, especially for women.
Mm.
That it's of course, coming to fruition now that they're able to look at all of these 40-year-olds that have been struggling for their entire lives to go, yeah, there's something here,
Mm.
right? It's not just in your head. It's
Mm.
not just anxiety, and you can't just get over it.
Mm.
So for me, it was really validating to learn more about that. And it helped me, I think, explain, and without needing to argue or feel like I needed to validate myself to somebody else, right?
Mm. Mm.
Because I don't care what you think about me.
Mm.
And you can think that my diagnosis is fake all you want, but I've seen the difference in my life and my quality of life
Mm.
post and pre-diagnosis. So
Wow.
I'll take it. It's the diagnosis that's fit the best in my entire life. That's for sure.
No, that's amazing. I'm so pleased. And one of my friend that I mentioned, she said one of her clients, he's just got a late diagnosis, and it was like all of a sudden, you said about something was lifted, but he just said everything finally made sense.
Yeah.
You
The
know?
skies part, the angels sing, the sun comes out. Like it
Yeah.
really is that powerful of a moment when you A, get that diagnosis and then B, decide to do something about it. I think
Mhm.
because we can get the diagnosis and process that, but we actually have to act on it afterwards. So
So with me then, right? I never thought. Well, I didn't think I was ADHD. I've never thought about that, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. It's great, but I just didn't think that I'd have that or whatever.
yeah.
But on a podcast not so long ago, a few months ago, the lady I was interviewing, she said to me, "I think you might have ADHD." And of course, then my mind just ran with it, didn't it? I couldn't stop thinking about it because no one said that to me like this in this format. I think you have it. She goes, "Oh, with you and all your different things that you're doing, all your different businesses and all your different hats, are you sure you don't have ADHD?" And I was like, "No." But then
Wait.
I was like, I couldn't stop and think about anything else. And so I've now started the process. I've spoken to my GP, had an in-depth conversation with my GP. We've got in the UK something called right to choose because the waiting lists are so long. So I spoke to Holly because I actually had Holly in my pocket for a couple of weeks, and it just happened to be going on at the same time. And obviously, she has ADHD and she's a clinical psychologist. And I just said to her, and she said, "Oh, well, I do ADHD assessments, but I can't do yours because I know you." And I was like, "Oh, do you know of any sort of like who would be a good provider? Because there's this big long list." And I'd seen a couple that people had recommended, and the one that Holly said was who was recommended, but they were also on the list. So I've been on the website, I've been on their website, the Right to Choose website, and I've got the form from them. I've went it all through with my GP, had to fill out another like form with the GP, and then I've sent it all into my GP now, and
In process.
they're starting the referral process. But I don't know how long it's going to be because again, the waiting lists are long here. But this provider I've gone for has got one of the shorter waiting lists. But they've also, Holly did say, make sure that the person that does the assessment, if you do get diagnosed, that they also deal with the medication because some don't. And it's called, is
Yeah.
it trisation or something? Ah,
Titration or something like
yeah,
that. Yeah. So
yeah.
it's like a
So
ramp up.
yeah, so she said make sure they're saying they deal with the medication as well as, but some of them then have a waiting list for that, but this provider don't.
Oh,
So
good.
I so I've suffered with severe anxiety for over 20 years since I was about 20 years old. I'm now 41. It was always told to me by the doctors it was GAD, generalized anxiety disorder,
Yeah.
and before I hit 20, I never thought, and this is going to sound terrible me saying this, I never thought I'd be one of those people that would suffer with anxiety or depression or low mood. I just didn't think it was going to happen to me. You don't at 19 years
Don't.
of age.
Yeah.
However, I was going through quite quite a turbulent time in my life. I was dealing with my
Yeah.
sexuality. I was in a relationship with a woman at the time, and it was a really, really, really bad relationship. It ended really badly. And then at that point, I then had to go to the doctors, and I was told that I had anxiety, and I was put on trazodone. And my dog takes trazodone now for his separation anxiety
Yes.
for situational departures. I mean, I was on that over 20 years ago, but
It's
I was purely put on the trazodone because it used to help me sleep. Because at night, my mind was so active, I just couldn't switch off. So I was put on trazodone for years, and then I was told it's such an old drug; they don't really put people on it. So, and I do have some PTSD as well that I've been going through, and that's only become apparent over the last 3 or 4 years as well. And I won't go into too much detail of all that, but I've been dealing with that as well, and come to the realization of that I've got PTSD, severe anxiety. I've been on all sorts of cocktails of medication, like everyone go in. I've had all sorts of different talking therapy, CBT mostly, but it didn't help me. And then looking into mindfulness, and which helps me a bit more, and then sort of meditation. But it's just always just been put down to GAD. But I've always been this person that I hyper focus, I hyper vigilant. I'm a perfectionist, I'm a control freak. I like things done a certain way. I like structure, and I always just used to think I'm a typical male Virgo because I'm born in August. I'm just a male Virgo. That's the traits of a male Virgo. But yeah, I'm come from a corporate background in banking, so I've been used to having structure. So I've got that business experience, and from a corporate background, so I've had structure. But then running your own business or multiple businesses, I like working. I like to keep busy, but then I think I like to keep busy because I am then shutting out some of the trauma and the crap. Yeah, I think I've got some of the traits of an ADHD
Yeah.
person, and that might be what I've been going for, because I was bullied badly at school, in
Oh,
secondary school, for being gay, and at that point I didn't know I was gay. So in years what you call 7 and 8, where you're from like 11 to 13 years old, I was going through a lot at that time anyway. But you're very vulnerable in that time of your life. And I was told
yeah.
I was bullied badly for being told I was gay, even though I didn't know I was then. And I didn't come out to being gay until my early 20s, because I went through this cycle of I was in relationships with women, I was then bisexual, I then was in relationship with men, and then I've since been in relationships with men ever since. I think that all stems from because I had bad relationships with women. I was bullied at school. When I've worked with like women in the banking and corporate environment, I used to struggle with female managers, or they would struggle with me. So I couldn't take like authority from them. Like we would clash, and I think we would clash because I was so feminine, and I'm a strong character, and I think they saw me as a bit of a threat. So I really struggled with female bosses in work, and I also struggle with criticism, and like even though I am trying to frame it as constructive feedback, I struggle with criticism, and then I think I then got that rejection something dysphoria as well. I think I've
Yes.
got that because
RSP.
I mean
Yes.
I take things to heart. I am sensitive. I'm emotive. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm an open book. And I always used to see those things as negative. But when I did some work with the amazing Andrew Howe last summer, he made me realize that those things are my superpowers, and they are my secret sauce. They are that make me me. So I shouldn't be
Yeah.
fighting them. I should be embracing them. And now I do. And last year I went on a massive physical and emotional and mental journey to do with my own well-being. And maybe now this is the final piece of the puzzle. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's like word diarrhea
Agreed.
now because I'm just
Yeah.
sharing my experience.
Right. No, it's brilliant though, right? Like that's what it's all about. And I think it's really interesting to hear from both a male and female perspective, like some of the struggles that we've had, very similar in many, many ways, like the rejection sensitivity, the dealing with authority figures and things like that, having a really strong sense of justice, I guess, is very well known for people with ADHD. I'll
Yeah.
tell you, I learned a lot from, believe it or not, Reddit and TikTok. And
Right.
once you start, the algorithm will start feeding you more and more. And you need to take some of it with a grain of salt. But there has been so many eye-opening emotional moments that I've had watching TikToks,
Mm,
learning more about myself and how I process information, how I take in the world, all sorts of things. Yeah,
mm.
it's been quite an interesting journey.
Yeah. And yeah, I think it's great that you're sharing your journey. And yeah. And obviously it's made me sort of think about me. And obviously maybe that will be the moment that everything come, because
Like,
I'm on lots of different medication for
okay, cool.
anxiety, depression, low mood. And at one point, I did come off them, and I felt so pleased with myself that I finally was able to come off them all. And I think I came off them all for about a year, 18 months. But then I don't deal very well with stressful situations. I get overwhelmed very much so. And I don't deal with stressful situations. And my husband said, look, I think you might need to consider going back to the doctors and going back on medication. And I saw that as a massive defeat. I felt like, I felt like I'd lost because I was admitting defeat that I was having to go back on medication. But someone then reframed it a little bit and said, well, you know, diabetics need insulin to sort of live, and you've got a chemical imbalance in your brain. So you need medication, be that anti-anxiety, antidepressants, or maybe ADHD, but you need that to help get your brain back in
Yeah,
rhythm.
that's it. I mean, everybody needs support in different ways, right? And it just so happens that our particular brains need this different level of support. One of the other big things that is quite common is rapidly cycling moods, which I didn't realize. And that is very personal for me because my main diagnosis from the time I was 18 years old was bipolar. Um,
Really?
yeah, I was bipolar, but it didn't make proper sense and the medications weren't working ever. They put me on a lot of the seizure medications to help control the bipolar symptoms and nothing would work. And then I discovered that with ADHD comes also rapidly cycling moods.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, that makes so much sense. And I've not actually needed, so I was one of those people. Some will need to still, if they medicate for ADHD, they might still need a supplemental something or other. I was one of those people that needed one additional drug to help with the Adderall rage, unfortunately.
Mm.
There are some side effects to the really good ADHD medications, and I was slamming a lot of cupboard doors for a while. So I added one medication that kind of evened that out and made me less mad all the time. And it's been golden since then. No anti-anxieties, no antidepressants, no bipolar medication at all. So I am,
Oh,
yeah,
I was
it's really interesting.
I was going to say, so do you still have that bipolar diagnosis then now? Or
No.
because my one of my colleagues, and she won't mind me saying, but like she had a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, BPD, and her trigger was relationships. But she's recently had an ADHD diagnosis, and it might be that now she didn't have BPD at all, and it's ADHD, and it's just
Yeah,
wild.
exactly. It's so the way that I have come to sort of accept all of these years of being misdiagnosed is that the doctors, the psychiatrists specifically that see us, and often I think in both of our cases, because we've got a free healthcare system, there's often a long wait. You see them for a very limited period of time, and then you're managed by your GP. So they see you for this snapshot in time, and they have to take what they see and apply the best diagnosis that they can to that in that moment.
Mm.
So for years, it made sense that
Mm.
that's what was going on, and again, pointing the finger back at anxiety. And it's like anxiety and, oh yeah, rapidly cycling moods, you must have bipolar. I made a couple of really rash decisions at one point as a 20-year-old, and they're like, you're manic. Right. So it was what made sense at the time. But as I grew and matured and was able to express myself in different ways, I could then start to tell my medical practitioners and therapists a little bit more accurately. I could describe what was going on. And I think that helped me over the years be able to properly start to address things. And then again, going back to that therapist that stopped me mid-sentence one day when I was rambling, no doubt, it was a sure sign, right? That there was something bigger going on. And yeah, I think it's just so important to start investigating that when you start suspecting. And really, like, I took a written list into my doctor to say, this is how my life is impacted. These are the things I can't do. These are the things I'd love to do. and just don't have the energy for. Here's the emotions I go through. Here are the thought processes that are happening in my head. Even using that doctor's visit as an example, I said, I can't tell you how many times I've rehearsed this conversation. And it was starting to check some boxes for the doctors that were paying attention to go, maybe there's something else other than bipolar going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I suffer with like low mood and erratic moods and like just like some of the thing like the tiredness and the overwhelm and stuff. But yeah, I just find it's just all really fascinating. But I'd love to just segue into a little bit about like the pain side of things now, because again, I have chronic IBS pain, which is still being investigated at the moment, and I've had all different tests, scans, I'm on medication, it's not working, and I have a lower back pain problem, and I'm
Yes.
wondering if it's all sort of linked to like the trauma and everything else that's going, like the dogs, it comes out in your behavior, like the pain, you're in pain. And so, yeah, how, like, tell me about your like pain and what that
Yeah.
all looks like.
So I think we've got a lot of similarities again when it comes to the physical pain. I've been dealing with chronic back pain for about 15 years now. And I was getting a lot of, I would be fine for a while and then really not fine, like in an ambulance heading to the hospital,
Oh my gosh.
in full body spasms. Like I couldn't talk. They were pumping me full of ketamine to get me into the ambulance. Like it was bad, bad, bad. But
Oh,
they never x-rayed anything. And they were always of the mindset of, well, we're pretty sure it's a burst disc. So, whether it's burst or herniated, we're going to say it's all the same treatment plan anyway. So there's no sense. But I was like, okay, great. So I spent 8 years I called them my trifecta. I did massage, physio, and chiropractic work, all with 3 people working in the same office. So it was perfection. I had a great team behind me, but it wasn't enough. And I finally approached my doctor again with my paper list of here's all the things I can't do. I can't camp. I can't hike. I can't sleep properly. I'm tossing and turning all night. Like, what is wrong with me? And he looked at me and he said, Amanda, you're only 40. I said, I know. And I've been dealing with this for 10 years now. So it turns out I have degenerative disc disease going on in my lower back. I have a burst or a bulging disc that's pressing on my sciatic nerve.
mm,
So I am numb from the left leg right down to my pinky toe, basically,
mm,
and deal with spasms and like weird pins and needles in my leg often that will make me stop dead in my tracks and grab a hold of whatever stable surface I can and just ride that wave basically. And
mm.
and and just I essentially I've been really lucky. I have to hope that it doesn't ever happen in front of a client because I can only imagine what my face looks like and the noises that are coming out of me are just awful. Uh,
Mm.
but yeah, it was a lot. Like I said, I think at the beginning of this podcast, putting socks on in the morning is a task for me when that should
Bless
be
you.
like barely a second thought, right? And
Mm.
up and down stairs is difficult. And I specialize in leash walking as a dog trainer. I picked an interesting niche for my physical ability, but luckily for us, we do a quick demo and then it's mostly the parents doing the work. So
Mm.
it's worked out well so far.
Yeah. Brilliant. Because like, when you're in pain, that does affect like how you show up, and you could have days where if you've not slept, we all know that we need sleep to like our bodies to rejuvenate and repair. So if you are in pain, that chronic pain as well, like dogs, like this dog I've got on me, he's got chronic back pain and separation anxiety. So it's all linked. He then resource guards, but it's like with us, like if we're like I've had this stomach pain for nearly 3 years, and it just takes its toll.
It really,
Mm.
really does. And like you said, with the linkages, I locked my jaw once upon a time. I woke up one morning and literally oversleeping had managed to dislocate my left jaw, and I could not fully open or close my mouth. So I basically went to my dentist with my mouth open about that wide and talking to her, trying to anyway. So she sent me to a physiotherapist that specialized in jaws. And he looked at me and he said, "It's not your jaw that's the problem. It's the stress. It's how you carry it. It's where you carry it."
Yeah.
And he said, "All of your stress sits from your hips all the way up to your jaw."
Yeah.
So I had about 1 or 2 exercises that he gave me to actually work on unlocking my jaw. But all of the rest of the exercises that he had me doing were breathing and mindfulness and stretching the rest of my body. It had nothing to do with, that wasn't the source. That was
Yeah.
just the end result, right?
It's mad, isn't it? Because that happened to me as well. So I was having these really bad headaches. Now I suffer with migraines anyway, but it wasn't migraines. It was these excruciating pain and headaches. Sorry, that's one of my dogs barking, but that's the life of a pet, right? This excruciating pain in my headaches, all up my back, my shoulder, my neck. My blood pressure was high. So I then had I had all these tests and scans, and they said that I had like pressure behind the eye. It was intracranial idiopathic hypertension or something like that. And it was like all linked. So it was like a vicious circle. Like the high blood pressure was causing the headaches, and then the headaches was then causing this. And they were like, "Oh, it's stress." And I was like, you say you don't, I said, "I don't feel stressed. I'm not stressed about anything," but you are. And that's how it shows up, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And especially with people like us that stuff things down and
Mm.
try and try to manage our trauma and our emotions that way. That's why, I've been so happy to be part of Holly Tut's Dog Pro Support Circle for so long, because I really started paying attention to the mindset work that she does. And
Yeah,
it started helping. Like it does take some practice, and
it
it's
does.
not going to be the be all end all. It's not going to be everything. It won't solve everything, but it's such a big help. Like
Mm.
I don't have as many flare-ups anymore. I
Wow.
don't have the constant symptoms. It's more of good days versus bad days, or good moments versus bad moments. It's not 24 hours a day anymore, right? So
Mm.
it goes a long way. And when you start paying attention to the linkages and how some of your physical symptoms and disabilities are showing up, you
Mm.
can start to really trace things back quite a long way, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think
Wow.
a lot of the physical issues that we deal with are very much linked to our emotions and our trauma.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's all linked. Amanda, for any pet professional listening who's neurodivergent, disabled, or managing chronic health challenges, and
Right.
maybe they feel like they're falling behind, inverted commas, what would you want them to take away from today? What's one piece of encouragement or practical support you wish someone had given you earlier, please?
Yeah. So I've got 2 things. My first piece of advice, I think, is to think about this as it's not being less ambitious to make a sustainable business for yourself.
Mm,
Sometimes it might take us a little bit longer to get certain things going. That's okay. We're all on our own timeline, and we have to stop comparing to other people.
yeah,
That is the biggest thing I've learned is comparisonitis. Oh my goodness, it's the worst feeling ever, and it feels so good when you finally stop comparing and judging yourself compared to other people.
yeah,
Um, but I think really the one thing that I think that I want everybody to be able to take away is just to think about one change that you can make in your business this week to reduce some of the pressure on yourself, whether
yeah,
that's simplifying your offers, tightening up some of your boundaries, or automating something like we had kind of mentioned. Um, Figure out something you can do to make this more sustainable for yourself so that we can still be doing what we're passionate about 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road for as long as we want to continue doing it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh, thank you so much. I've absolutely loved chatting with you today. If our listeners or viewers want to find out more about you or what you do, how can they find you?
So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram under No Hassle Dog Training. And you can also find me at, oh my goodness, Pathways to Pet Care on Instagram. And that's my pet mentorship.
Brilliant. Well, what I'll do is I'll get you to send me those links and I will put all that
Okay.
in the show notes and I'll obviously
Yep.
upload it all to YouTube and stuff. So do send me those after the call. But
Yeah.
Amanda VanTassel, thank you so much for joining me on the Pet Business Wellbeing Podcast. I've absolutely loved chatting with you today.
It's been so awesome. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Pet Business Wellbeing Podcast. If you enjoyed today's chat, I'd love it if you could share this with a friend. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And please leave me a review. It really helps me to reach other pet professionals who need this kind of support. Until next time, take care of yourself, look after your well-being, and remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about building a business you actually enjoy being in. Bye for now.